Hi, I'm Lewis. I work with the Performance Partnerships team here at NMPI, and welcome to the third part in a series of conversations we're having to better understand where performance marketing is, where it's going, and what businesses can do about it. This week, we close off the time we've been discussing app marketing. So, again, I'm joined by our performance app analyst, Angels Janae Castelby. So, the last time we spoke, Angels, we looked at some of the trends that we thought would define apps over the coming years. And I think part of that we touched on creative and tracking quite a few times. So I thought it makes sense that we spend this last session diving a bit more into those points because clearly they're going to become more and more important. And I want to start off and indeed actually keep the agenda very focused on what we think businesses are doing wrong and how we think they can improve those things. So let's start with creative. What do we often see businesses making errors with regarding creative?
Yeah, so first I've got to say that businesses don't give enough credit to creatives, or at least not the ones that they deserve. It's surprising as well in an industry where many channels such as display, social, and now including apps as well are so visual. So what we tend to see is low investment into creatives just because like production can be expensive or like direct ROI may not be seen in a performance report. So then it just leads to limited resources allocated to this area. But when we focus on Google App campaigns, we have to remember that they do leverage machine learning and they do run on bid strategies where they're asset agnostic. So control can be quite limited. And this is really when we need to shift to a creative mindset. A common mistake that we see is repurposing creatives that have been created for other channels without really thinking about the individual channel goals and also differences in performance. So the reality is that creative that works on paid social may actually not work or translate to deliver the same performance on Google App campaigns. And it also rounds back to the limited in resources. But so we also recommend not overloading campaigns with changes, linking it again to the leveraging the machine learning. We want to make sure that we're looking to test not too many variants at once, since it will really fluctuate performance and impact the bid strategies learning. But I guess now also moving on to Apple Search Ads, we also need to realize that just because it's a keyword driven channel, this doesn't mean creatives aren't important. When you think about it, like the app icons, the screenshots, the video previews are the first things that you see when you click on an app. So probably also the biggest factor of influence to drive users to download. So I guess essentially what I'm trying to say is that ignoring creatives is a big mistake to make overall.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a few instances of brands trying to repurpose creative, particularly from social within app context, which doesn't often translate, particularly when app is so intent based. So how do we as a business fix these things? What do we try to do to contend with them?
So with creatives being such a powerful lever to succeed really on app campaigns, we'd recommend to have a pipeline of creatives ready to test and also build on the back of it. So the way to approach it, first looking at Google App campaigns, would be to ensure that we're covering all ad formats to maximize our placements across all Google properties. So including a portrait, landscape, square video assets, and also like those top image aspect ratios. Then we would want to also segment the creators across different ad groups and kind of tailor these by theme. So what I mean by this is having like one or two evergreen ad groups with overarching brand messaging that just applies to all users, and then look to have new ad groups based on like specific app features. So for example, if you were to have a wellness app, you would have an ad group on nutrition, another one on like meditation, and then this way your creatives will actually be relevant to target audiences. And even though you can't really change targeting, and like it's based on Google's algorithm, it will eventually learn over time which theme resonates best with certain audiences. Then I guess similarly, you should also look to align your creatives to your campaign goals. So another way is to understand the part of the user journey that you're targeting. So this is usually done by setting the campaign goals and really understanding if you're trying to get awareness, installs, conversions, or actually you're just looking for retention and loyalty. So we can say here we're talking about changing the call to action and making it optimize it towards that relevant event that we're looking to optimize. And then when analyzing performance, it was really important to at least look at it from an asset level and optimize accordingly. You're able to do this in Google Ads, but also consider only making changes at least 1 or 2 weeks. Going back to our point on machine learning, we want to give it as much time to determine what works best and not overload it with loads of changes. So what I'm trying to say, for those businesses who have a limited resources and are looking to expand into video assets, and Google have released like video builder betas, and there's other tools out there as well that you can, for you, it's easy ways to make videos just out of a few images, and allows a lot of creative testing, which I think is really valuable. And now moving on to the App Store side of things. Google Play offers A/B testing through the store listing experiments. So this way we can actually see the results and apply them to the App Store as well on the Apple side of things. So keeping in mind as well, in terms of the low-cost options, you are able to also do a lot of micro testing, and it can actually deliver surprising results even when the resources are limited. And then moving on to the Apple side of things, I guess a point I really want to make is across paid and organic. I see we see a lot of people that do tend to isolate these channels. Sorry, Louis, I kind of went to tracking.
Oh, it's okay, no worries. How do you want to play it then? Do you want to start all over, or do you want to just go from that?
Do you think I can go from that? Just like on the Apple side of things, and just jump there.
Yeah. So where were you?
Also, just on the last bit. So also on Apple, from both paid and organic perspective, we can utilize creative sets. So I can just jump in with the last bit.
Okay, let's try and keep as still as possible and literally just go straight in with also on the Apple. Okay. Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Cool. So also on the Apple side of things, from both a paid and organic perspective, we can also utilize creative sets on Apple Search Ads to test different ad variations and apply those results to the organic listings as well. So overall, it's all about really continuous testing, analyzing performance, and applying those learnings to your campaigns, I'd say.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, I think the point that really stood out to me was that around creative testing and giving time to the machine learning to actually let it do its thing and help you actually understand what performance looks like. I think there's, particularly with performance-based, intent-based campaigns, there's that over-eagerness to want to see performance straight away. So it's interesting you're calling out sort of almost like patience as a way to allow the algorithm to tell you what you need to improve on. Okay, then. So let's move away from creative now and look at tracking and reporting. And again, I want to sort of pose that first question to you. What are the issues we see within this space?
So this really goes back to our previous conversation around privacy and the release of iOS 14.5. But really, if I had to pick like 3 common pitfalls to answer your question, I'd have to say the fear of iOS 14, focusing on installs instead of in-app events, and also isolated organic unpaid efforts within the App Store. So when thinking about tracking and reporting, obviously it has been established that there's a lot of uncertainty in the industry with the release of iOS 14. And having said that, businesses should not be threatened by this change. I think those who stop investing in iOS under Google App Campaigns, for example, or other upper funnel channels such as display or social, will be missing out on a lot of revenue. So you have to continue optimizing your ATT prompts and be transparent with your users to encourage opt-ins at this point. And then in terms of reporting, what we often see as well is focusing reporting around installs, as in-app data may not be as accessible, not as accurate under those iOS 14 changes. So however, businesses and marketers should not lose sight of the bigger picture. We want to ensure that we find ways to report on revenue and actual ROI to grow the campaigns. And then when we look at the Apple App Store side of things, I think it's good to point out that unlike SEO and paid search, which for many years have worked in silo, organic and paid efforts in the App Store do really come hand in hand. So failing to do so, failing to recognize this, and not keeping these services together would really lead to a drop in performance. The reason for this really being that they both depend on the Apple's algorithm, and conversion rates from your paid campaigns will impact organic category rankings and vice versa. So it's something to keep an eye on.
Okay. Yeah, again, a lot to take in there, and I think it's interesting you're talking about, you know, the big changes that the area and the channel is going through. So certainly worth considering it, even though, you know, obviously the industry is going through some pretty seismic changes at the moment. So again, last question: how do we work to overcome this? How have we supported businesses overcome these issues?
For sure. So as you've just mentioned, there's definitely a lot happening in the industry. So the first thing would be to recognize that these changes around privacy are happening. And what we need to do is just work closely with all the parties involved. So from MMPs to your clients, and also the platforms such as Google and Facebook, because what this will do, it will allow us to integrate our reporting and leverage as many data signals as we can in order to get insights on user behavior within the app, and also look to apply revenue modeling tailored to your business. And really this, in this point, first-party data will become even more important. So if you think about all the brands that already have mechanisms to identify users and in-app actions internally, like user logins, in this case, we can probably continue to track users across multiple sessions, even without IDFAs. So it'd be something to look into as well and ensure we have all of that aligned across the tracking and reporting. And then I also recommend looking into all analytics tools available, and especially the GA for Firebase as a complementary solution to your MMP. So you can combine signals across the entire user journey, and you can even include like web user behaviors, which can lead to reduced learning periods on your Google App campaigns. I think it will also allow you to understand, standardize the data across the user funnel and just get more insights really. And then from an App Store perspective, just to emphasize on my previous point that I made around ASA and ASO teams working in synergy, I guess we really want to ensure that they are sharing keyword ranking data and monitoring their impacts across both organic and paid to get that picture of total app performance, which is really important. I guess just as a last point, I'd just like to suggest also working on a performance model. Our bread and butter really here at NMPI, which can be very attractive to clients, especially around times of uncertainty, not only due to iOS 14, but also the impacts of the COVID pandemic. So under this model, we can offer risk-free ways of working tailored to clients and profitability targets, if that is a concern.
Okay, well, thank you, Angels. Again, as always, there's been a lot we've covered today, and I appreciate it. They're not the easiest topic to talk about. So thank you for your time, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Lewis.